The Gnosis, the knowledge that I want you to leave this series of presentations with is this. There exists an extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional civilization that has been manipulating human history for more than 12,000 years. The most ancient human followers of that civilization call this leader Yah, which means in their language, he exists. That entity concealed a pattern in an ancient document called the Torah, the teaching in English, predicting tragic events taking the lives of millions of people over the next 35 centuries. That pattern is detectable in the ancient zodiac. That message is designed to inform you of Yah's mastery of our time-space continuum, to motivate us to search to understand his message. It is no accident this knowledge has come to light now, to show you that he exists, but also to give you a warning, the warning of Noah. Hi, I'm Rex Hudson. I'm going to be your guide to the Yah Way. I know some of you are feeling anxious about the statements I just made. If you're from a religious background, you may be thinking this guy is going to say some heresy. And please, I just urge you to stay with me. If you're from a secular background, you may be, I can divide those people into three groups. Atheists, in which if that describes you, there's probably not a lot I can do to convince you of anything. If you're agnostic, you may find this fascinating. If you're like I used to be, in other words, I believed it, but not strong enough to actually change any behaviors, you can find this life-changing. But my goal in this presentation is to help you make a choice, an informed choice about your future. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not a person of belief. I kind of envy those that are, but that's not my nature. For me to make a change in my life, I need something else. I need data, I need information, I need science. And if you're like me, then you're going to find this fascinating. There's a tool we're going to discuss. It helps us kind of frame this discussion, and it's called the Kardashev scale. This was popularized by Carl Sagan in his program Cosmos. But a gentleman, Nikolai Kardashev, in about 1960, put forth the idea that there was a relationship he saw across this planet, and that is for each society, more energy equals a better society. In other words, the more energy a society produces and consumes, certain measurables such as increasing lifespans, lower infant mortality, better satisfaction with life went right along with that production. Now, that's an interesting concept, and he made the leap of faith that maybe that was a universal phenomenon, just not among us right now, that would be a trend you can see across any society, anywhere. And he said, therefore, we could see our own progress and also place on a scale any aliens we were ever to reach out to if we travel into space. And he began a scale by saying we right now are what he called a Kardashev type zero civilization. You know, got to remember, it wasn't so long ago the height of technology on our planet was a campfire. It was an amazing tool, actually. It helped us to heat and light our homes. It was something that allowed us to sharpen our tools and our weapons and to cook our food to make much, much more of it digestible. It was a great technology, but over the last few millennia, we've developed a few interesting things to go along with that, to make communication, transportation, construction, etc. easier, safer, faster, etc. But interestingly, something is required for each of those, and any improvements are to come. An increasing amount of information technology, increasing amount of tools and technology tools to implement it, and of course an ever-increasing amount of energy to make it all work. Now Kardashev said if we continue that trail, that tendency to develop these things, at some point we'll master the resources of our planet and will become what he called a Kardashev Type 1 civilization. This is one that's mastered the resources of their entire planet. That's an interesting step. Kardashev Type 1 is dominated by networks of things and just not individual things. So we have a networks of transportation and airlines and shipping, etc. We have a global information network now in the form of the internet. The thing we're missing that goes along with this is a global power grid. And they say that and other things will come about somewhere in the next century, and we can move energy from one part of the planet to the next as needed for any project. That's really an amazing step, but it opens the door for the very important tool, and that's space travel. Now, you may be saying, Rex, we've already done that. We're in there, that's for sure, but remember it was 50 years ago that we went to the moon, and then we stopped. Didn't we have the technology to build bases there or to go to Mars? The answer was we had the technology, we didn't have the wealth. Even the United States, as great as its economy was at the time, you add the cost of going to Mars to the top of that, it was really daunting. You'll notice over the last few years we've seen the growth of international endeavors, the International Space Station. We see nations, consortiums of nations sending satellites into space, and consortiums of companies. That will continue as we truly move to the Type 1. And going out into space opens the door at the next step, and that's Kardashev Type 2, which has mastered the resources of their solar system. They've gone to the planets, the asteroids, they're harvesting energy and resources, and eventually they still look out and say the overwhelming majority of energy is just being blasted out into empty space. Let's harvest that too. And that gives them the ability to harvest 1,000,000 times more energy than is available to our planet. Now, that kind of energy is important because, well, you may have heard that space travel to another star is impossible, and that's absolutely incorrect. It just takes an impossible amount of energy far beyond what we have today, but not beyond the capabilities of a Type 2 civilization. That opens the door to the next step, and that's Kardashev Type 3. This is a civilization that's gone beyond their own home solar system, and they're colonizing, they're capturing the resources of many solar systems until they at some point master their entire galaxy. Now again, that's 1,000,000 times past Type 2, which is 1,000,000 times beyond where we are right now. But that's not the end. With that ever-increasing energy and technology, then that opens the door to Type 4, which is a civilization that is jumping from galaxy to galaxy in this process, and eventually, perhaps, even to the entire universe. But strangely enough, that's not the end of the scale. Because there's one step beyond that, and that's the civilization that has mastered the energy of creation itself, mastered the energy of the Big Bang. In other words, they've created the time-space continuum that we all and everything we know exist in. That civilization, as unbelievable as its abilities must be, would have opportunities we can't imagine, but it would also have challenges. Let's suppose for a moment that to understand this, types 0 through 4 exist within our universe, within our time-space continuum. A Type 5 civilization exists outside and beyond it. Types 1 through 4 technology might be beyond our comprehension because we just simply don't have the science and knowledge to understand what they're doing. But if there is a Type 5 civilization out there, We are their technology. Look at your hand, look at a tree, look at a bird, look at the sky. That's all the technology of a Type 5 civilization. A Type 1 through 4 civilization technology would be, to us appear to be supernatural. We have no explanation for what they're doing. But a Type 5 civilization technology would be our nature and therefore invisible to us. Look at your spouse or your girl, your friend, and say, gee, I don't think of them as being technology. A Kardashev 1 Type 4 would be godlike to us. A Kardashev Type 5 civilization would be, by definition, God with a big G, the creator civilization. So if the Kardashev Type 5 civilization wanted to communicate with us, wanted to send us a message, how would they do that? And how, if they did, would we know that message was from them and not as simply a Type 1 through 4? The sign of a message from a Type 5 civilization would be foretelling future events with perfect accuracy over extremely long periods of time. The reason for that is because all the other types exist within our time-space continuum. They're subject to our physics. Physics tells us that there's a fundamental randomness at the subatomic level of our reality. And that randomness, results in physicists talking about probabilities of events rather than definite events, yes or no. And that induces the society to making a plan for the future, making a projection. No matter what they do, over time, reality will drift away from whatever the plan was because there's a randomness at the core of our universe. So, how would Type 5 communicate with us and let us know it's from us? The message would be embedded in nature because that's their media. It would be embedded in ancient times and would focus on patterns of events, not just single events, because a single event, we tend to treat it just an act of God. Now, the way this story was told to me is in the 1950s, the United States realized its energy and weapons programs were creating a vast amount of nuclear waste, which was going to be dangerous, lethal, not for years, not for centuries, but for millennia time, far beyond the life of any one nation. And they said, how do we protect future generations for dangers we're creating today? And the answer was from the Rand Corporation. Create a religion around the message you want to move forward. Then create a holy document that contains that message. And then give a package of customs and rituals to the preservers of that message to set them apart from the rest of society. Sound familiar? I'm going to offer to you that plan has already been implemented. Religion is Judaism. The message is contained within the Torah. And the people are the Jews who have been set apart to preserve the Torah. In other words, we are living in a Type 5 universe. But there's a problem. As I mentioned before, we're about 100 years from reaching that status of Type 1 and having the resources to leave not only our planet, but leave our solar system. You see, more energy and technology, unfortunately, creates more danger. What I mean by that is a person with a rock is dangerous. A person with a gun, much more so. The person with a bomb, much more so. The person with an atomic bomb, much more so. And a person with the knowledge to engineer a virus, incredibly so. That would have the power to wipe away an entire civilization. All of those things are coming forward in the next 100 years. So the choice I'm going to ask you to make is to choose two paths. Choose between them. Right now, the path one is the civilization where evil is unreachable. That's what we're on right now. Governments around the world are monitoring their people, their communication, their attitudes, their beliefs, their interactions, anything they post online, etc., with the goal of catching evil before it has a chance to be manifested. That's the path today. The other path is the path where evil is simply unthinkable. Unthinkable to any member of that entire civilization. Would never dream of performing an act such as what we just described. That's the Yah Way. Now, we may not realize it right now, but making the decision between those two paths for you individually and for us as society is rapidly coming upon us. The clock is ticking, so to say. Now, the time for belief is over, and the time for knowing has come. That's why right now you're looking at this presentation. To find the answer, to find that proof that Yah is out there, waving at us, trying to get our attention, we're going to look to the stars to discover that answer. That's our next presentation. I call it the Wheel of Stars.